Welcome back to the next episode of Hip Hop Reminiscence. My name's Joe Rosen. I'm your host with my co-host Fuzz Jackson. Fuzz, tell them what's up.
Greetings and salutations, good people. Thank you for tuning in. We are back. Let's get it.
We are back to do the next episode of the Rapper Spotlight series. We started with Method Man on the East Coast. We went to Ice Cube on the West Coast. Went back to the East Coast with Eric B and Rakim. And now we're going to the Dirty South with Outkast. You know, full disclosure, Fuzz, I've traveled a lot. You know I do. I've been to the South a lot. I've never lived in the South. I went from Delaware to Syracuse to Boston. I know you're from Georgia, from Augusta, Georgia, and obviously live in North Carolina now. So I'm going to rely on you for a lot of the Southern slang because it's not my thing. Honestly, the first time I listened to Outkast, I'm like, what are they saying? I thought it was like British English. You know what I mean? Like I thought it was that kind of thing. So I think what we're going to do is what we normally do, right, Fuzz? We're going to start with some background. I'll give some background on the group, and then we'll get into it like we always do and have a great episode. And I do want to say before we get into it, Fuzz, last week with Eric B and Rakim, that was our most viewed episode on YouTube and listened to episode on Spotify. So let's continue the old school hip hop conversation.
Yes, sir. Let's get it.
Outkast was formed in Atlanta in 1992 by Andre Benjamin, nicknamed Andre 3000, who is now 48 years old, and Antoine Patton, nicknamed Big Boi, who is also 48 years old. I would say they popularized Southern hip hop. It was always East Coast and West Coast before then. They formed as high school students back in the day. Players Ball was their first big single. Their fourth album, Stankonia, is where they received mainstream and crossover success. They were, pure hip hop until then, and then they started getting some radio play with Stankonia a little bit before, but really with Stankonia. Miss Jackson was number one on the Billboard chart, and then Speaker Box debuted at number one on the Billboard 200, not the hip hop Billboard. The overall Billboard 200, and it won Album of the Year at the Grammys and was certified diamond. Outkast starred in the movie Idlewild in 2006 and did the soundtrack. They broke up right after that. Outkast has 6 Grammy Awards, certified sales of over 20 million records, and ranked number 7 by Rolling Stone for the greatest duos of all time. Well behind Eric B and Rakim, but number 7 is still pretty good. Yeah, they were signed to LA and Babyface prior to their high school graduation, which at the time was not LaFace Records, but became LaFace Records. They were the first hip hop group on that label, and they're part of the Dungeon family. I didn't even know there was a Dungeon family, Fuzz. It's amazing to me sometimes, like everybody's part of a family, and I don't always know anyone else in the family, but obviously Outkast was part of this Dungeon family. They had 6 studio albums: Southern Playalistic Cadillac Music in 1994, ATLiens in 1996, Aquemini in 1998, Stankonia in 2000, Speakerbox / The Love Below in 2003, and Idlewild in 2006. Fuzz, you're a Southern guy. You're a Southern rapper. Talk to me about Outkast and the effect they had on you.
Dude, okay, so Outkast, when they first came out, I was a subtle fan, but when ATLiens came out, I was fully on board. And I got to say this, one of the smartest hip-hop groups to ever come out of the South. Highly intelligent rap music, and it's so street that sometimes the highly intelligent part of it can go over your head, but it's a very, very unique sound, very intelligent sound, very Southern sound, very homegrown sound. By far one of the best groups to come out of the South.
I think by far one of the best groups to come out ever, maybe, really. You know what I mean? Definitely the best group to come out of the South. Like, not even a question. I mean, who else is even in the conversation? Maybe I'd put, I'm a big Ghetto Boys fan. Maybe do we even count Houston as the South? Probably not. But, Outkast for me, Fuzz, was a little bit like Mobb Deep. Remember I told you, like, I love Mobb Deep. I'm obsessed with Mobb Deep. I listen to
Right.
Mobb Deep all the time, but I didn't listen to them when they came out. I listened to them a few years later and then went
Right.
back and listened to everything. Outkast was the same with me. I was talking to JR a little bit earlier, and he was talking to me about his favorite songs and favorite albums. And I was honest, I didn't really start listening to Outkast a lot until Stankonia. And when Stankonia came out, and that's my, we'll talk about best albums and everything like that. That was when I went back and started listening to the other three before that.
Right. Right.
Who else, Fuzz? Like, if we're talking top 3 MCs or top 3 groups from the South, let's take out Ghetto Boys because Texas is Southwest, right? Like, we don't even count that.
Yeah.
Like, from the South, who are we putting in there with Outkast?
Yo, you know what? JR is gonna love me for this one, but you got to put 8 Ball and MJG in there.
That's his guys.
That's his guys, and rightfully so. What they did, and I think they're from Mississippi. The impact that they had was pretty phenomenal for their area. So I would go Outkast, 8 Ball, and MJG, and probably third. We're not gonna do Ghetto Boys because that's Texas, even though
kind of sort of.
So yeah,
a southern feel though.
Let's go Goody Mob.
I like that. I like T.I. I like T.I. for a while. Like, he could be in there. I mean, he's had a lot of success.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Ludacris had a lot of success.
But would you put them under Solo?
Yeah, that's true. I guess. Yeah. I mean, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, like top 3 Southern MCs / groups of all time. You maybe put Ludacris in there or T.I. But I think Outkast is the best. Like, I don't think there's anything even close in terms of longevity. In terms of, like wordplay, 2 rappers. I mean, we very, very rarely see. I mean, we talk about it now. Back in the day, it was rap group after rap group. And now there's not a lot of rap groups, right?
Right.
It's just individual MCs. And so.
And just to be clear, 8 Ball and MJG, Memphis, Tennessee.
Yeah, Memphis, Tennessee.
We want to make sure we get that right.
That's absolutely, that's right. Yeah, Memphis, Tennessee. You're right, 100%. So that's fine. Let's get into the segments, Fuzz, and we can talk about it because I think that will dictate a lot of where we go here with Outkast. And this is a really good. It's crazy because when we sit there at the end of each episode and we talk about, all right, who are we doing next? And it's a big deal to figure out who we're doing next, right? Like,
right.
We started off with one of your favorites in Method Man, then we went to my favorites. One of my favorites with Ice Cube, and then we go into Rock M and we go to Outkast. I mean, that's 4 of the greatest right there. But we have so many more greats to get through. You know what I mean?
Yes, we do. We do.
So many more grades. So many more grades to get to. So let's talk about the MURC, the most unique rap characteristic. What's your most unique rap characteristic from Outkast?
The way I would say. The way each one had a flow that was kind of similar, but also different.
Okay.
Big Boi had more of a street pimp type flow. Andre 3000, the way he rapped to you, it sounded like he was sitting down talking to you. So I felt like you had, in my personal opinion, I felt like you had the best of both. Like, you had one MC directly spitting darts. You had another one that kind of felt like he was welcoming you into his thoughts and was talking to you. And that's what I always liked about Outkast, was even though that they were dope as a duo, each MC was so different with the content and with the flow. It just worked perfectly.
That's a really good analysis. I was just going to, that was a really good analysis. Mine's not going to come close to what you're talking about right there. Like, for me, it's the twang. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just the different sound. And that's what I think is their most unique rap characteristic. But I like what you said a lot better than what I said. I remember, I wish sometimes that they have subtitles for music. That's obviously that's not really a thing, as much. I remember the first time I watched Peaky Blinders on Netflix, I
Right.
stopped it because I couldn't understand. Like, I had no idea what they were talking about. And then I went back and watched it with subtitles, and I'm like, this is really good. And I kind of wish I had that for the first couple of albums of Outkast, so I could understand what they're talking about, because they have that twang, they have that southern, that southern accent a little bit, and you learn what the words are. You learn to understand them a little bit.
Right.
But that definitely set them apart. And I remember when I heard them come out, the first time I heard Outkast, that was what separated it for me. That was the big difference for them.
Right, for sure. But at that time, man, the South was, it's funny because people always had this idea on the South and how everything's slow and this and that. But the one thing that always was super fast, was the slang.
Yes.
So it's like one album from Outkast might come out and have a certain type of slang, but by that next album, we weren't saying those words anymore.
That's fair.
Totally different.
Absolutely, no doubt.
Yeah.
What's your favorite album? I mean, they have a lot, right? I mean,
they do,
and they're very, very different. I mean,
yes.
they're very, very different. I don't want to say it's like De La Soul, 3 Feet High and Rising, De La Soul is Dead, to the move of Stakes is High, and the albums that came after that. It's not that much of a difference, but
right.
The albums are very, very different, especially the last ones.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with AT Aliens.
Okay,
that's when I really legitimately knew that Andre was the truth. I was like, okay, this guy's a monster. I mean, Big Boi too as well. But when I heard that like from the first track of that AT Aliens album, I was like, okay, these guys are for real. The first album was not a fluke.
It definitely wasn't. I think the reason I didn't really listen to them at the beginning was because, Southern Playlist of Cadillac Music came out in 1994, and there was so much coming out in 1994.
Right.
There was so much coming out then that I'm like, I don't really need to pay attention to this. You have to kind of pick and choose who you're going to listen to. In 1994 was, Illmatic, and I mean, there's just so many albums that came out at that time that, to me, my favorite album, and it's probably I think for a true Outkast fan, they'd probably dispute what I say. But I think just given the fact that when it came out in 2000, after I graduated law school, and it was like right around the time when Eminem was coming out, or maybe a year or so later, Stankonia is my favorite. I think simply because I think top to bottom, it has my favorite songs, and Bombs Over Baghdad is, I mean, we're going to get into the best song, but like Bombs Over Baghdad is one of the best. I think it's one of the best hip hop songs of all time. And it's one of the most distinct songs of all time. Like, everybody knows Bombs Over Baghdad, whether you're a rap fan or a rock fan or a country fan.
Right. And if you ever been in a club when that shit drops, game over. Yeah.
The two songs that drop like that, like in a club or on the radio when you just kind of like can't control yourself, to me, are Bombs Over Baghdad and The Rock Wilder by Method Man and Redman. Like, the beats when it hits,
facts.
Like, right? Like, you just can't control it, right? And all those albums are good. Like, we talked about Eric B and Rakim last week. Like, it's interesting, right? We went from Method Man, who had a ton of albums, to Ice Cube, who had a ton of albums, to Eric B and Rakim, who had 4 albums. And they fell off a little bit with Eric B and Rakim, right? 1 was better than 2, was better than 3, was better than 4. But I don't know, you can make an argument, maybe not Idlewild, maybe not the soundtrack, but the other 5, there's a lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah. My least favorite album by them, probably the Idlewild thing. Yeah. But everything else from them has always been solid. Yeah. Like, you cannot say that Outkast has ever really put out a trash album.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Like, seriously, like you cannot. And with every argument you bring, I will shoot down every argument. Like,
right.
There's no way. There's no way. Like, as far as one of the most consistent groups, as far as one of the most consistent duos, lyrical growth, production growth. I mean, those guys, that's what you're supposed to do in a duo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, prime example.
And they were around for 12, 13 years. You know what I mean? Obviously, and they've continued to be around. I mean, Andre's, Andre's become a movie, Andre 3000 has become a movie star and done a number of movies now and TV shows. He was in a TV show, I can't remember the title, but it was on last year with Jason Segel that I really liked. And obviously he's been in a number of movies. And Andre 3000's become, along with Ice Cube, along with Method Man, along with Common, right? Like there's some rappers who have really, really gotten into TV and film, and Andre 3000 is one of those guys. He's had a lot of success.
Right. Yeah, he was great. He was great in Four Brothers.
Four Brothers.
If any Jimi Hendrix fans out there, you guys should check out this movie called The Long Train Coming, excuse me. And it's about Jimi Hendrix up until he goes out on stage in Montreal for the first time. But Andre plays Jimi Hendrix. Did an excellent job.
I need to check that out. I have not
Definitely
seen that one, but that sounds amazing to me. Best song, Fuzz. What's your favorite song? They've had a lot, right? I mean, there's songs on each album that you could say, if they came out and the other ones didn't come out, you could say they're the best. But what's your top song?
Damn. It's got to be Southern Playlist of Cadillac Music.
Okay, why is that?
Because for me, Joe, it's more of a nostalgia thing because I was living in Georgia when that came out. I remember the impact of what it did when it came out, and some of my fondest memories, like from that song, was from that era. So I'm gonna have to go with that one.
I think Bombs Over Baghdad is my favorite, is the best song in my mind, but Rosa Parks is a really close second. And I remember I've taught, Rosa Parks sued Outkast, not Rosa Parks because she passed away, but her estate sued Outkast over the use of her name in the song, which it's not even about Rosa Parks, right? Like it's a metaphor, but they lost the lawsuit. But I remember teaching that in my entertainment law class a little bit over the years, because it really talks about title. Like you can really have whatever title you want, and you're pretty much, if you get sued, you're going to win, because title, the courts allow you to really be as artistic as you want with the title,
right,
and set it whatever you want. But Rosa Parks isn't really about Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks, the song is about sort of changing the rap style, right? Changing what's real in rap, and this is the way we're doing it as Outkast. But those two songs, Bombs Over Baghdad and Rosa Parks, are two of my favorite songs, not just Outkast songs. Those are two of my favorite songs ever.
Yeah. You know what? As far as like one of my favorite Outkast songs, you got to throw Crumbling Herb in there. Like that song. Yeah, dude, that song. I didn't even smoke when that dropped, but that song was just so fire. That beat, that guitar riff, it was just so fire, man.
Let's talk about. I'm going to cause some controversy here, so I'm gonna let you answer these questions first, and then I'm going to cause some controversy, and you'll probably go after me a little bit for this, but that's fine. It's totally fine. So I'm going to start with the skip song. I'm going to go to the underrated song afterwards, but I'm going to go with the skip song.
All right.
What do you got for your skip song?
Dude, mine is definitely I Call Before I Come. I am not love Outkast, but I am not a fan. I don't know why. I'm not a fan of that song, bro.
You don't like it? No.
At all. Always skipping that one.
My skip song is the whole Love Below side of the Speaker Box Love Below album.
I knew you was gonna say. I knew something off that album you were gonna say.
I don't understand it. The whole Love Below album, not the speaker box side. So this was my issue. One of my favorite rappers of all time was he's still alive, but he's not really rapping anymore, is Mos Def.
Right.
And then Mos Def went from being a rapper to something else. I don't know what, I saw him in concert once. He was like singing jazz. I'm like, this is not my thing. Right. To me, that's what Love Below is. I love Speaker Box. I think I love that half of the album. And then Love Below, I can't. Fuzz, I tried the other day. I'm like, you know what? I'm 49 years old now. I haven't probably listened to this thing in, 15 years, 10 years or whatever. I'm going to try it again. And I'm like, no, this is just,
You're like, I don't.
it's not hip hop. It's not hip hop. I'm not, there might be people who like it. And it's fun. I went on Twitter and I think it was on Twitter and something else this week just to see if I could see. I wrote in like, on Google or whatever, what's the better side, Speaker Box or Love Below? When people were arguing, and I don't even think it's an argument. I think it's like the question, who's better in Public Enemy, Chuck D or Flavor Flav? It's not even a conversation to me. What do you like? I mean, are you a Love Below guy?
Some of it, yeah. Some of it, yeah. But look, here's the thing. I think during that time, I was in a band called Organics, and I was doing the music and musician thing, and so I was here for it. I was all about it. But you know what? I have not listened to it in a long time.
Do you?
I'm curious. I'm curious to see if my mind changed. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, not at all. Do you think that spawned? So, Anderson .Paak in recent years has gotten a lot of love, right? As like a very unique. And I know Anderson .Paak is incredibly talented. Obviously a great drummer, great musician. I can't really listen to Anderson .Paak either, Fuzz. Like I can't really listen to it. I think there's a couple Anderson .Paak songs that I do like I do, but I can't really listen to him for an extended period of time. I can't really listen. I love Atlanta's like one of my favorite shows of all time. I loved Community back in the day. I love the first Childish Gambino album. I can't listen to him anymore. It's not. When they take hip hop and they go do something else, that's totally fine. That's their right. And I know a lot of people like it, but when it ventures from hip hop to something else, you usually lose me.
You're like, yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, I'll tap it out.
Yeah. You usually lose me. Most underrated song.
Red Velvet.
Okay.
Red Velvet.
That you like song, Red Velvet? Okay.
Bro, like when you really listen to that song, bro, like woo. Yeah, that's definitely one of my slept on joints.
It's harder with Outkast a little bit to do underrated. It's like with something like Eric B and Rakim, like they didn't really get a ton of radio play because it's like 1987 and there's not, rap's not on top 40 stations.
Correct.
You know what I mean? And so like it's easier a little bit to do underrated. With Outkast, they had a lot of hits. They had a lot of hits on the radio. They had a lot of hits on top 40 radio. So it's a little harder to do.
Way different. Yeah.
Way different. Fuzz, I'm going with my underrated, the whole Speaker Box side of the album. I listened to it this week again. I've listened to it. I listened to Speaker Box first because I knew I liked it better because Speaker Box is more traditional hip hop, right? 100%. There's no doubt.
Yeah, for sure.
And I listened to it and I'm like, man, this is a hit. This is a hit. And then Church came on and I'm like, I forgot about Church. Church is an unbelievable song. The beat, like everything about it. And I always felt, I'll be honest, before Speaker Box to Love Below,
right?
I think I preferred, not that I think, I know that I preferred Andre to Big Boi before Speaker Box The Love Below because I thought Andre 3000 reminded me more of Q-Tip than any other rapper had reminded me of Q-Tip, right? So I'm like, well, he's not Q-Tip. He doesn't really sound like Q-Tip, but he's kind of got a Q-Tip vibe going on, like things like that. But then Speaker Box to Love Below came out and I'm like, I don't know. I may have like I went from Andre. I went from Team Andre or Team Andre 3000 to Team Big Boi pretty quick because there are hits on the Speaker Box side that really, really don't get their due. Yeah,
it's true. It's true. And not only that, let's talk about some of the work that Big Boi's done after.
Absolutely.
I cannot remember the name of the group that he had been working with, but there's a couple groups that he'd been working with. The stuff he's done with Sleepy Brown. So, the Big Boi. I had a chance to open up for Big Boi and Sleepy Brown, and dope show. So good live, incredibly dope live. if you get a chance to see Big Boi by himself, go see him. It's worth the money.
I would love to see him. Even if he just did the whole speaker box side, I'd love to see it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, every song, the only, on Love Below, like I never really liked Hey Ya. I thought the video was kind of cool. You know what I mean? Like it was a different kind of video, and like he doesn't sing that well.
Right.
He's singing on that album so much, but he's not like, he's not a great singer. Neither was Mos Def, but Mos Def ended up singing a little bit too. But I will definitely check out Big Boi. If Big Boi was still performing live, I would be all over that. Because I think when that came out, I don't think I appreciated Big Boi as much as I should have. And when we went through the top 50, the Billboard, top artists, Andre was there. He was there pretty high, but Big Boi wasn't there at all.
Yeah, and I think just because of Andre's style and his weirdness in a good way. Yes. I think people forget how valuable and how dope Big Boi is.
Big Boi was more traditional, right? Like a more traditional rapper, what folks were used to. So if you're going to compare Big Boi to Rock M, yeah, Big Boi's going to fall short a little bit, but you're not going to compare Andre to Rock M because it's like completely different.
Yeah, that's like comparing Andre to Method Man. It just doesn't work.
Yeah. And I did I think I definitely preferred Andre before Speaker Box to Love Below came out. And then that turned me. Then I became Team Big Boi.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
When you think of Outkast, Fuzz, what do you immediately think of?
True representation of the South.
I was just going to say the South, but again, your answer is way better than me. How is it a true representation of the South?
Because of the way Big Boi has that playalistic persona, and the way that Andre has like that old school, because it's not like every time Andre spits a verse, it sounds like an old soul dropping gems.
Yeah, it does.
It sounds like that old uncle or that old auntie or that old grandma at the dinner table or in the kitchen making food and telling you about how shit used to be. And every time Andre has put a verse down, it hits me like that. Like, yo, this is food for thought. You know what I mean? And Big Boi has that flashy Southern persona with the cars and the fashion and the stuff that he talks about. It's kind of the stuff that like my uncles would talk about. You know what I mean?
I like that.
Yeah. That's the vibe I get.
So I was just going to say the South, but I like what you say, the accurate representation of the South. And let's be clear here on Big Boi. Like, I know, Andre, you talked about like the weirdness in a good way.
Yeah, in a good way.
Big Boi's kind of just as weird, man.
but you know what? Yeah, right? he's
crocodile on my shoes, like, you know what I mean? Like,
he's street weird.
Yeah, he is street weird, and he's walking around like Big Boi's kind of like. I'm not saying he's a pimp, but like he kind of like has that pimp, right? Like he's walking around like that in the videos and wearing the crocodile. Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I think he's like he would have played a really good pimp in The Deuce.
Right.
You know, like where Method Man was. He would have been a really good pimp in that.
Right.
In that, you know.
And just the differences between the two, because you have Andre with the acting and once again with the street shit, like Big Boi doing the pit bull thing and the kennels and all that stuff. And they just on the mic and off the mic, they are so different, but they just work well together.
They really do. Yeah, they really do. I like the fact that, I mean, number 7 by Rolling Stone for the greatest duos of all time. I mean, that seems pretty accurate to me.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that.
Right. Yeah, I'm not either. I mean, Eric B. and Rakim up there. I mean, you know, we're talking about groups like, you know, Simon and Garfunkel and things like that. So it's
correct.
It goes beyond rap. But when I think of two MCs, you know, like obviously like Chuck D and, you know, Flavor Flav, it's different, right? Like Chuck D was the MC, Flavor Flav was the comedian, right? The hype man, the comedian, whatever. You know, Naughty by Nature was good with Vinny and Tretch, although Tretch did, you know, a little bit more of the actual rapping. I mean, Run DMC, obviously that's one. I mean, there's a lot. I mean, me with Mobb D, Prodigy, and Havoc. But I think the best one to compare them to is Phife and Q-Tip. Like, I think that's the best one to compare them to, because two very different rappers with similarities that really, really feed off of each other and complement each other.
Right. For sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I mean,
man.
that's the thing. It's like with Q-Tip, and we'll do Tribe here soon, right? With Q-Tip and Phife wasn't even on the first record that much, but like obviously after that he was. I mean, you just have two very, very different rappers. Q-Tip's got the jazzy style, Phife is more street, but they complemented themselves really well. And I think Andre and Big Boi was the same way.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, because you had the street prophet and then you had the player prophet.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So yeah, like definitely, man. And that's what made Outkast so different. And not only that, Joe, they came out at a time where people slept on the South. People thought all it was gold teeth and rims and broken English. But these guys were highly intelligent. They were very conscious. They knew what they were doing at all times. And so that's why you can't give them nothing but the utmost respect.
And they set the stage for the South, right?
Yes,
I mean, now there are a ton of rappers coming out every day from the South, and I think Outkast was really the one who set the stage for them with the
for sure
they had, because they were crossover, right? Like, there's no doubt, like they were crossover. Yeah. They weren't crossover until Stankonia. I think the first 3 albums, it was not crossover, but when they got to Stankonia with Miss Jackson, with So Fresh, So Clean, with Bombs Over Baghdad a little bit, but more so Miss Jackson, So Fresh, So Clean. I mean, that was crossover. That was top 40 radio, and Speaker Box to Love Below was the #1 album on the pop top, the Billboard 200. I mean, not the rap one, the overall one.
Yeah.
Yes,
sir.
What group are you putting them together with? This is a really hard one. Like, you put them together with an East Coast band. It's a different style. West Coast. I tried to think of this a lot, and this one's really, really hard.
It is really hard. If you were to if I would, you know what? I'm gonna go out on a limb right now and say that Outkast is comparable to what Gang Starr did. I would say that two different sounds, but two individuals that meant a lot to what they were doing. It meant a lot to hip hop. And some of the best records we've ever heard. And that's how I feel about Gang Starr.
I like that. And also the message that Gang Starr had and the message that Outkast has. And the fact that sometimes you would have to, sometimes the message is clear. Sometimes the message is not. I think with Outkast, sometimes you have to read between the lines to determine the message. And I think with Guru and Gang Starr, you had to too. How about this, Fuzz? I want to put them together with a West Coast Outkast, namely Pharcyde.
Okay.
So Pharcyde, more storytellers, right?
Right.
But they kind of had the funkiness, the weirdness, that kind of stuff going on. Not the same, obviously West Coast, South, but I don't know. There's like something similar in there for me. Maybe it's the beats. Maybe it's the difference, just they're very, very different. There's no one who's ever really been like Pharcyde. So, I think there's folks that have tried, but there's no one who's really been like that. But could you see Pharcyde and Outkast together? I mean, I think that would be kind of cool.
For sure, man. For sure. I definitely could see that. The only group that I've ever seen close to what Pharcyde did was a group, and you should check these guys out, Joe. There's a group from Atlanta called Y'all So Stupid.
That's the name of the group?
That's the name of the group. and the name of the first, they only put out one album, but the name of the album was called Band Full of Pakistans. And that was our Southern version of Pharcyde. And I don't know why Outkast and those guys never got together, because Y'all So Stupid was on Roddy Records, which is Dallas Austin's label.
Okay.
And Dallas Austin was very close to the LaFace guys. But yeah, like definitely check those guys out. And Outkast is definitely, I would put them in the same thing as Far Side for sure.
I like
That's
that.
really good. That's really good.
I got a question for you. And before we get into 4 words and finish this one up, your sound is more New York to me, right? But you're from the South. You've always lived in the South. You've always lived in Georgia, North Carolina. You've always did that. Did you ever think of putting did you ever think of that Southern feel? Because to me, if I just listened to you, not knowing you and not knowing where you're from, I would think you're from the Bronx or Staten Island.
Right. I think I've never wanted to do that just because in the era that I grew up in, there were so many other artists doing it.
Okay.
And I think like when I broke out, like I was like, yo, the whole thing for me was not to sound like I was from the South, because at that time, everybody was from the South. And I remember when everybody used to shit on the South for hip hop. Yeah. And then when I was breaking out, all of a sudden it was cool to be from the South and rap. But at the same time, it was cooler if you sounded like somebody from the South.
Yep. Okay.
And I was like, dude, I'm not, I gotta sound like what I'm influenced by. And I was influenced by a lot of New York hip hop. So that's kind of why that sound generated. But yeah.
That makes sense. It is funny though, like, because if you see it now, it doesn't really matter where anybody's from, right? I mean,
not at all.
Not at all. It used to be East Coast, West Coast. Everyone was from New York, and then it was either New York or LA or California, whatever. And then there was like, the Bay Area with Tupac and, you know what I mean? And, Paris and some of those guys and stuff like that. But now it's everywhere.
Everywhere.
You have the whole Chicago contingent, with Kanye and Common and Lupe Fiasco, and you have the South, you have Atlanta, you have other parts of the South, you have Detroit with Eminem, like you have everywhere. Like there is nothing stopping you. You still kind of have to go to New York or LA eventually because that's where you need to record. But in terms of like where you come from, I think the originality and the creativity is way more important than just being from New York City.
Oh, for sure, dude. Most definitely.
Because if you look at the 80s and 90s, the 80s and early 90s, let's call it, 87 and 94 or 93, how many of the top selling's the wrong word, but how many of the top artists were not from New York or California?
It's true.
I can't think of anyone. The Ghetto Boys were from Texas. I can't think of anyone.
2 Live Crew, Florida. Shit.
Right? All New York.
You had Awesome Dre and the Hardcore Committee. They're from Detroit. They had a nice run. Small run, but good run.
Yeah. You had Ed O.G. from Boston.
Dude. Yeah, Ed O.G. from Boston.
Right. But that there's not much.
There's not a whole lot, bro.
Yeah. And then you had to go out and find it later on. And I think Outkast was a big, I don't know, Outkast, maybe did they set the stage for everybody so that it, not just the South, they definitely set the stage for the South because they're definitely the most successful Southern rappers ever. Like, I don't think there's anything close.
Yeah, for sure.
But maybe they said,
would you say 3 6 Mafia is close?
I don't think anyone's closer to Outkast. I just think
not record sales as far as
the mainstream success that they've had, just the mainstream success that they've had.
I think you're right.
You know what I mean? So, all right, let's finish up, Fuzz. We're going to get into an Outkast theme 4 words.
Let's get it.
And then we will leave these folks and come back soon with our next Rapper Spotlight series. So you start, I will give you the words.
All right, yo, check it out. Running through these lyrics real fast. I'm a big boy, so I'm an Outkast built to last. You guys can check the survey. I'm trying to get the Benjamins like I'm Andre. It's 4 words.
Stank.
I put it on you. You know what it stinks. From NC to California, my style ranks. I'm a big boy, leave him outcasted. Trying to get these Benjis like Andre, leave him flabbergasted. I just do my thing, and I ride with my motley crew. I stay away from the Erykah Badu's too.
Oh, that's great. Atlanta,
home of the dirty South. And when you talking Outkast, watch what you say out your mouth. These guys get lost, want to wrangle me. I put more dungeons in my family.
3,000.
3,000. 3,000. Give you 3,000. Give me what I want when I'm spitting. Shouts out to Andre. Even though he's kind of weird, I met him a few years ago. I was like, my name is FJ. He walked off saying so.
and you just did this one, but I'm going to give it to you again with Dungeon.
Do it, Dungeon. When I speak Dungeon, I don't mean dragons. I'm thinking ATL 94, pants saggy, white t-shirts, Levi jeans, and no braids. Kept a real sharp, edged up fade.
Fuzz, man, you always make me smile so much. I love it. It is so great at the end of these shows to finish this way. It just makes me smile like crazy. And
I appreciate you, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd like to thank you all. This was our next episode of Hip Hop Reminiscence, Rapper Spotlight series on Outkast. Our website is hiphoprem.com. Our Twitter handle is hiphopremin. I did just set up a TikTok channel that we will be uploading to soon, which is Hip Hop Reminiscence. You can search it on TikTok. Fuzz, tell them where they can hear you.
Yo, you can check me out at Fuzz Jacks on Instagram. You can check me at Fuzz Jacks on Facebook, Fuzz Jackson on Facebook, and North Jacks Twitter, NORTHJAXX, and also go to Bandcamp, fuzzjacks.com.
Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching today. We will be back very, very soon. Talk soon.
Peace.